Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first ever AceCon. Actually, in this case, part one. If you didn't know, it's already part one, because of course there's going to be a part two. So very excited to be here this fine evening, or if you're somewhere else in the world, hopefully it's a fine day, or in someone's case, particularly sunshine in your face. More on that later. In the meantime, in between time, this is an event celebrating asexuality, what it means to be asexual, our experiences, stories, and how we can lift each other up. My name is Jacob Plick, Duval King Jacob on Twitter and Instagram. I'm a co-founder of the Epitheater, also on Twitch and on Twitter, where we tell empathetic and diverse stories utilizing Ttrpgs, video games, and other shenanigans. And I'm also the DM of Duval and Dragons over on So Many Games and professional GM, player, storyteller, a bunch of different other places and stuff. And specifically, welcome to our panel on being Black and asexual. So before we get into some introductions of our panelists here, just a quick note. During this particular con here, we'll be sharing some deeply personal topics and stories, but what is true for us may not be true for you. So we want to keep this space safe, and we will be providing links to resources that you can utilize in the chat. However, we're not therapists or psychologists, but we do want to encourage you to listen and utilize those resources. Also, a quick shout out and thanks to our producers. I love you very much, RoboGoblin. And of course, moderators, love you very much as well. And our awesome panelists all across this amazing weekend for helping put this together. And without further ado, let's meet our wonderful, awesome panelists. Also, of course, we have our lovely little Twitch chat here, and we'll try and field questions from the chat as we go. And also, we'll have a break around the hour mark. So I mentioned my name and where you can find me. My pronouns are he, him, and I am a biromantic asexual. So my panelists, if you wouldn't mind letting folks know who you are, your pronouns, where folks can find you, and your ace label / spectrum, which I'm sure we'll get into in a minute. Starting with the wonderful Sade.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sade, or Ambrose. My pronouns are she, they. You can find me as @SSAmbrose_ on Twitter, because Twitter hates me. And you can find me everywhere else as @SSAmbrose, such as TikTok. That's one of the other places I hang out. I am the creative director and founder of Othersider Studios, where we tell horror stories. And that's coming soon, which I'm excited about. And you can also find me on the Lovely Craftians podcast. We have 4 seasons. And I am panromantic demisexual for that one.
Hell yeah. Basil.
No, dip. I didn't think I was going next.
Yeah, Zoom and overlay are different. Sorry.
No, you're fine. I was just, for a moment, I had a flashback. I'm like, yeah, with my last name, I'll go last. Oh, God. Anywho, hi, everybody. I'm Basil. My pronouns are they, he, z. They, them is also fine. It's honestly, all of them are fine. I love all of them. Hopefully nobody can hear that background noise. My bathroom has turned into a little bit of a demon. It's terrifying at night. So, gosh, about me. I am a game designer, writer, and sensitivity consultant, and occasionally when people ask for it, Latin and ancient Greek translator. More people need to ask me about that. I want to translate more things. You can find me on Twitter as @Kobanyakana. You can find me everywhere else, but oh my God. You can find me everywhere else, except for like TikTok, because no. But you can find me most other places as Kobanya. It's just somebody on Twitter is squatting on the Kobanya account still to this day. So yeah, it's pretty much about me. I make games, weird, queer games. Oh, my orientation. I forgot something. I am also a biromantic asexual. So yeah, we match.
Let's go. We out here. Fair.
Oh, I didn't know I was going next because it's not me next on the overlay.
We talked about this, everyone.
Okay. Sorry. Hi, I'm Fair. I'm a TTRPG actual play player. I do a lot of stuff and things, so you should just follow me on Twitter, where you can know when I'm doing it. I identify currently as asexual and panromantic, but I am still, feeling things out, so who knows, that might change.
Awesome. Jazz.
Oh my gosh, it's me! What up, everyone? My name's Jazz, also known as Cinderscoria on Twitter and pretty much everywhere else except for Instagram because someone hacked my account and never gave it back, and I was too salty to make another one. So I didn't. Let's see. My pronouns are she, they. And I identify as aro ace, maybe like gray romantic, but it's rare enough that I just kind of go with a romantic. So I'm aro ace. Nice to meet you. Oh, I guess you could find me. What am I doing? I'm a TTRPG performer. You can find me on Zeal Zaddy's channel on Tuesdays, where we play a homebrew D&D game. You can also find me soon on the Other Setter Studios, where we play a Monster of the Week game. There's also some other things coming up with Queen's Court Games and some other places as well, although I'm not sure I'm allowed to say that, so I'm just gonna...
Ooh, secrets.
Secrets. Yes, that's me.
Fantastic. And last but certainly not least, Raven.
I feel like this is a short thing. Is this a short thing? Is that why I'm going last?
It can be as long or as short as you want.
Oh. Okay.
That's a different panel.
That's a.
I was like, I don't know if that is
This is
here.
still an ace panel. Okay. I didn't mean it like. Okay, great. Off to a wonderful start.
I'm
No
Raven.
regrets.
My pronouns are they, she. I am pan-romantic, demisexual, very heavy demi. Like, very heavy demi. I can be found on the internet as Wreck-It Raven. You can find me everywhere at Wreck-It Raven, except TikTok, it's Wreck-It.Raven. Not a long story, just an embarrassing one. And I am a TTRPG performer. You can see me as Renliara on, right now it's Tuesdays on Cantrip Breakers. There is another little project that I'm actually working on with Sade. We're still kind of figuring out some of the details, but it's dope. And I am in the process of writing my very first Monster of the Week campaign. And two of the people on this panel are actually cast in that. So it's going to be really good. And I just do really weird queer things. You're welcome. Did I miss something?
No, I think you nailed it.
Yes.
Jazz. Oh, is that a high five?
Missed something. No, I missed something. I missed
Oh,
something
please.
so important. You guys, I'm in an anthology, not just any anthology, an asexual own voices anthology. It's called Being Ace. You can add it on Goodreads right freaking now. It's coming out this fall. Please, if you would, if you want, I write to you sometimes.
About that too.
I know. Listen, I'm not. Listen, sometimes I be forgetting. I have different identities. You know, one's author
cool.
Jazz, one's TTRPG Jazz. But yes, I do write stuff.
I mean, you know, Jazz, it's fine because I didn't plug any of my stuff because I totally went blank. I forgot.
You're so valid. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
You can do it now. You know?
Okay, stop pressuring me. Oh my god. Bullying. No, you can find me over. You can find me on Ampistrano, a homebrew D&D 5e campaign over on D&D Jordan Lee's channel. Usually every Saturday. We've taken a couple weeks off just because of some things. Also, it was also just announced I'm going to be in the next season of Taking Initiative podcast, where we're playing Pathfinder 2e. That campaign is called Sword and She, and I believe the first episode is going to drop next month. I also do a campaign over on Waffles Maple Syrup, which is Reflections of Delta Green campaign. And then I'm sure I'm missing some stuff, but those are the big things right now, and I'm so sorry if I missed something. Thank you.
All
Bye.
Good.
I log
everybody.
off. Bye. This panel was just so you could like support us as black ace people, and that's
exactly.
it. So bye.
That's it. So our Ko-fis are below. No, let's actually start out at the beginning. When did you figure out that you were ace? And if there was a particular moment, how did that moment impact you? And how has that led you to today? And we'll go ahead and start with Raven on this.
Is this because I'm short? I'm just kidding. Anyway, honestly, I didn't realize it until I would say within the last couple of years. I think a big big factor in that was being diagnosed for ADHD. And not having impulsivity be a thing, and not feeling the stresses of society telling me that as a femme presenting person I should be hypersexual. I learned it because I very much go through phases where like I will have the attraction, but I don't like doing something about it makes me feel weird. And so I started to really like dive into what that meant. And I came upon, you know, the asexual spectrum and understanding that, you know, it was okay to not want to just be what is expected of me. Like, I don't have to be a hypersexual person, even if I'm thirsty. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a horny ace. Very much so. Like, I find things attractive, but I don't have to act on those things because most of the time I don't want to. So I think that was really big for me because, again, with the impulse under control and understanding that a lot of the things that I like in terms of like sex was just to kind of medicate because I thought that it would make me feel better. And it didn't. So I've never said that out loud before. I never said that out loud before. I'm gonna be the first one to cry, and that's fine. But like I've never like
But you won't
actually
be the only one.
right. Okay, good.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
like
no.
I've never
Absolutely.
heard myself say those things before, where it was like the reason why I was so hypersexual is because I did feel that pressure to be, and that at the end of the day, part of it really was me just trying to not allow my brain to run me in really terrible ways. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
No,
Moving on.
that was wonderful.
That was beautiful.
Absolutely.
I'd
Yeah,
like
go
to
ahead,
jump
Fair.
in a little bit.
Yeah, please.
Because similar to Raven, I basically figured it out literally last year, I think. After just years of not really knowing or feeling comfortable with any certain identification when it came to my sexuality, just because it was just like Raven, I would also classify myself as a horny ace, even though it's not something that like I need to fulfill. But it just up until like last year, it didn't really make much sense to me. I was like, how am I like, how do I have this attraction, but I'm also not interested at the same time? I caught myself. Robo, don't come for me. I caught myself. So yeah, and so it's just like with knowing that, and it wasn't really anything specific that really led me to that conclusion. It was more so I think it was like during National Coming Out Day where everyone was coming out and I was reading everyone's stories and whatnot, and I identified with a lot of what was being said, and I, you know, after a little bit of self-reflection, it was like, you know what, that might actually be who I am. And it's been like, you know, fine for the most part. I do have like moments where like I'll think about something that's happened in the past and like, well, now I have an explanation for why I reacted in a certain way. And that's both like great, but also a little heartbreaking because like, you know, growing up, we didn't have this sort of language or anything. So it was like, how would I know? And it's only like with like, you know, more and more people talking about this and being open and like, you know, the internet becoming more and more prevalent that I'm able to qualify like the ways that I feel. So
No, makes perfect sense. I super resonate with that because for me especially, like, oh, these are questions we can even ask ourselves. No idea. And even like how, like,
yeah.
So Jess, how does that resonate with you?
A little bit different. I knew pretty much immediately. I think I was lucky in that regard, because even if I didn't have the language for it, I definitely from the time I was maybe 12 or so, and all of my friends were starting to like figure out like dating and stuff like that, and I was very much not into that at all. And I didn't get it. I'm not, so I would say that I'm sex repulsed. I'm sex positive, but I'm definitely sex repulsed, where I'm like, no, just a lot of no. But knowing that I was different was really difficult growing up, because I definitely thought I know a lot of people say like broken. I didn't feel broken. I just felt empty. And like I think I clung to like allosexuality for as long as I did, because I just kind of convinced myself that it would come around eventually. Even though I would be okay if it didn't, but sometimes, you know, you look at people and they fall in love and you're like, I kind of want that, you know, because it's just a type of thing. It's like a language I will never know how to speak. I'll never get it. Like I can pick up things here and there, but in terms of like actually connecting with people, I just felt like an alien. I didn't know the word for it until I was 17. I had a friend who was perpetually on Tumblr, and she said, "Hey, Jazz, I can't think of you as anything other than asexual." And I was like, "What's asexual?" And she gave me the rundown, and I was like, "Yes." And I never looked back. So I think that it was a huge comfort. And I don't know if you remember Tumblr in 2014, but it was a mess for Ace. Oh my, it was an absolute let me not swear, just a mess. It was just really gross, and it made me feel really bad about myself, but it gave me the sense of I'm not an alien, and I'm not, you know, broken, and I'm not empty, and it's okay to be alone for the rest of your life, because you're not really alone. You have you know, family, you have friends, you have pets, you have things that fill or fulfill that role in your life that is not necessarily in a sexual, or for me, romantic way.
Totally.
Not to jump in, sorry.
Go ahead,
A
Fair.
lot of what you said, Jazz, just really resonated with me. It's like the idea of feeling like you're an alien and not normal and not having any words to like define why you feel that way is like 100% how I felt for the longest time until last year. Like, and even like these days, just because of like society and like the expectations of society that are put upon you, like even these days I still feel like I'm still trying to get to a place where I don't feel like a broken object because I don't fit a societal norm, and it's hard.
Yeah,
it's really hard.
Well, welcome. We're happy to have you. You are not broken.
Absolutely.
You're not
Thank
an alien,
you.
and you're not an object. You are beautiful.
Thank you.
Damn Skippy. And none of you all out there are either.
Mhm.
And it's I think for me the challenge was I think I grew up a pretty hopeless romantic. The super challenge now is like, or was that like a mask like the whole time? Like, or did I just like love? I didn't love love, but I liked love. So like, how does that puzzle piece come together as my microphone is like, you're too loud, and I'm like, no, I'm just right. Thank you, Windows. And so as it continues to turn me down, see, this is the battle that I fight every day. Anyway, Basil, how does that resonate with you?
Yeah, so for me, I'd say that my journey with asexuality, like I was actually just talking about this, I think last week with my sibling, because my sibling Briar, who I never shut up about, I love Zer so much. I am the baby sibling. It's just the two of us, but you could really tell, especially if you follow me on Twitter, because yeah. Anyway, Briar is demisexual, and so actually how that ended up how it ended up going was Briar actually came out to our family first, and our family didn't take it well. Whatever, it doesn't matter. The point was, I was there. I was defending Zer, and I was like, "Shut up!" and just continuing our dynamic that we had as children, where I would beat up people who were mean to Zer all the time. It's funny because my mom was like, "Yeah, I did the same thing," because she was the younger sibling. But eventually, while Briar was getting comfy with that, I was like, you know, I should maybe interrogate some of my own thoughts. And, you know, maybe I'm being a little too adamant in my defense of my demisexual sibling. And then I was also on Tumblr during the horrible dark Discord ages with asexuality, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's me. But am I gonna mention that on Tumblr right now? Eh. I think I
Nope.
did make a post, but then like no one interacted with it, and I was like, that's probably for the best. But looking back on it as I was talking about it with Briar, I was like, oh yeah, we really should have realized we were both, on the asexuality spectrum sooner, especially because I'm a sex repulsed asexual. And even as a kid, I used to go on rants screaming about how gross sex is because it's fluids touching fluids.
Right.
There's so many fluids, y'all. And my mom would just be like, and I would ask my mom, I'm like, how do you put up with the fluids though? And she'd be like, well, honey, when it happens, everything's great. And now Briar's like, oh, well, Briar's like, oh, but it's fine. I'm like, but doesn't it get gross? I was like, well, it doesn't instantly get cold. And I'm like, nah, I'm sorry. I can barely put up with my own. No, grody, just grody.
Amazing.
So there was
Yeah, please go. Keep going.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, so for me at least, I think because Briar was there and kind of like blazed that trail, there was never a moment where I felt like, oh, something's wrong with me. Although there were moments when my mom was like, sweetie, you're a little too focused on this, and maybe when you have some life experiences. So I think for me it was less internal and more like external, having to deal with my parents' nonsense and then my aunt's nonsense and then my extended family's nonsense. So but now it's just me and Briar, and we're just like, and for the most part, I'd say for me, like, yeah, occasionally I'm like, oh, cool, that's a thing I might be into. But then my brain's like, but the fluids though, and then I'm like, never mind.
Yeah, I can super relate to that because I especially when my little sister came out as bi to my family, and my dad's reaction was of non-existent / nonplussed as a 70-year-old conservative Catholic Black man would stereotypically go, and my mom was strangely upset, and you would have thought like I had like taken a sword and was like defending my little sister's honor, and then like 6 months later, it's because you're bi, Jacob. Oh, right then. So I can super resonate with that. I'm actually something that I'm sort of, I don't know if there's like a spectrum for sex repulsion, but I've always like described it even as I was younger as icky. And so like here I am as a 36-year-old, still, pretty icky, you guys. Oh, weird.
There are a couple
Sade.
different
Yeah,
oh, sorry, Shada, go
no,
ahead.
you're good. No,
you want to go,
yeah.
Jess? Continue.
Oh,
Yeah,
I was
respond.
just gonna say there are several like ticks, I guess you could say, that you could use to describe your feelings about sex. There's like sex aversion, sex repulsion, sex favorable, so on and so forth. I just wanted to mention that, and also quickly mention that I literally yesterday was reading like a fic or something like that, and it went into extreme detail about kissing, and I was like, oh no. So you saying the fluids, I was like, oh god, yeah, I felt that.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Ambrose, go ahead.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just gonna have the fluids stuck in my head.
Yep.
For a little bit.
Rename the panel.
I would say that I would say that the best way to put it for me growing up is I didn't know what the definition, like I didn't know what it was, but I knew what the definition was of what I was. So I felt comfortable in that, but I felt like I was the only one. And I wouldn't say I felt, because we keep on using the term broken or similar, but I felt like I felt more like a puzzle is the best way to put it. I didn't have all the pieces to it. And for me, I knew I wasn't straight. That was immediate. Like I knew that immediately. So I was like, oh, I find everyone pretty, or I find everyone desirable, I find everyone attractive. I don't want to do anything about it though, until I know them. And that part came in when my first crush, or my first person that I fell in love with, was a woman. And it didn't go well because they didn't communicate very well about taking my advance, or like talking to them about it, and they ignored me. And then 2 weeks later, they pretended like it never happened. So that was great. That was my first time, and I was like, you know what? I don't need this. It's totally fine. Um, I would say that I decided to start looking into it when my dad was the one that brought it up. Actually, my dad was very good at reading people, and sat me down one day and said, like, "Hey, it's okay if you don't like who you're supposed to like according to society, right?"
Mhm.
And I just stared at him like, I don't know what you're talking about, dude. Like, I was playing video games and like I don't know where this came from. He's like, no, but letting you know that like it's more complicated than that. You know that's okay, and you can take all the time you want to figure it out. And that my dad liked to put it like put seeds in the brain kind of thing. So like it ruminated, it grew, it blossomed, and I thought about it, and I didn't really look into it or find definitions for it until I moved to Chicago and I was 22. I met several people that I'm still friends with that helped educate me in the queer community, and met my first ace friend, and they described their experiences, and uh, sat down together, and like they were like, okay, well, what about this, what about that, let me tell you all I know about what I know, because they love to learn everything and they would not shut up. And I still love them, but my god. And demisexual was something that like hit it for me because I fell in love with my now partner Adam, and I adore them. I do not like the concept of touching other people or anything like that, or like crossing that boundary of interaction unless I know them very well. And even when it comes to friendship, like touch is a thing for me. That might be also neurodivergency, but who's to say? But bottom line is that like when I get comfortable with people, then I want to uh, cross that boundary and have intimacy, even if it's just platonic intimacy. So yeah.
Well said. Well said. So now let's talk about the intersection. How does being Black intersect with your orientation? And we'll start with Basil this time.
Oh, I had a feeling it was gonna start with me because I was
You
like, huh,
just felt
if
it.
nobody, well, because I was like, if nobody wants to go first, I was actually gonna jump in. So
Perfect.
for me, I would say for the intersection of being both Black and asexual, I think it really wasn't until I got into college that I started learning about the whole, nature of like that horrible stereotype about, the like how, Black women, I say Black women, but I am agender. But at the time, once again, Breyer was the first to realize, hey, I'm non-binary. And then as I was walking to work, I was like, oh, let's have gender thoughts, I guess. And then I was like, oh, well, dang. And then I was like, but dang in a good way. It was just like, why did this take me so long? So learning at the time, like Black women are this or that or super sexual, I was like, one, you're racist, and two, that just doesn't sound right in general, or even for me specifically. So having to sort of balance that sort of idea of, or even just again chatting with my mom, and she'd be like, hey, did you find anyone yet, remember to make sure that you're prepared. And I'm like, again, mom, the fluids. And she'd be like, okay, well, we'll try again in a couple of months maybe. And so I was like, when I got to college for undergrad, I was like, yeah, it's finally my time to find myself and find my community. And I did, in a way. I found more nerdy people to talk to, got to hang out more, got to finally do what I wanted to do, and, just sort of like experience this moment of being in my Blackness. And for once, not having to, because before this point, I mean, I still went to a predominantly white institution, but I wasn't forced to be crammed in a building with them. So I didn't have to deal with as much racism because I was stuck next to little Jimmy in the class with me who wanted to touch my hair or something creepy like that. And so just sort of having that space allowed me to like really own who I am as a Black person. And then later on, once I realized that I was asexual, I was like, okay, sure. Like in general, people like to have sex, allegedly. But that doesn't mean I have to. And I already started this process of rejecting the notion that, Black women are naturally hypersexual. So let's just keep on, on this train. And so I would say with, with that, it's another, I like to think of it as like, it's just another aspect of my identity. I'm also autistic. I also have ADHD. I speak a bunch of languages. I'm super gay, you know. I'm into video games, and Sailor Moon is just another aspect. But I do think definitely being Black and asexual is different than being, you know, white and asexual or Latina and asexual. It's a unique identity. And it definitely was a bit of a long road, because I will say, you know, I was that sheltered Black kid, and my parents were always just like, oh, don't hang out with those ghetto kids, and, you know, focus on your education. And then going to college and slowly getting rid of all of those as best as I could biases, and just realizing, you know, it really doesn't matter how you present yourself or how you dress up. At the end of the day, you know, if someone hates a Black person, hates Black people, they're gonna hate you too. It doesn't matter whether you're wearing a suit or whether you're in sweatpants. You could literally be first in your class, all A's, tutoring the person, and they if they are determined, they will still be racist to you. So it's like, just that it's a pedestal you can never get to, you can never climb or stay on top of. And
If
I think I've wandered away from the point a little bit, but
I think it's all valid though,
Yeah.
genuinely.
It's
if
all
I
connected.
can, yeah, if I can, I kind of want to
Please.
jump off of that, because my experience as being a Black person is weird, and hear me out. I'm adopted. I'm adopted by white people. My biological mother is white. My biological father is Black. I didn't have access to my biological father's family. So I grew up being told to hate myself and hating myself. And I think part of that was the reason why I felt like I had to be this sexual being, right? Because at the end of the day, I wanted and I craved acceptance, because so much of my life was grown up, you know, trying to explore my culture and getting reprimanded for it. And that's really hard. That's a hard habit to break. And I'm so happy that I'm here now, and I can share my experience, because there's a whole slew of Black people who share an experience like this, who have nowhere to go, because there's a lot of people, unfortunately, in the Black community that don't think that we are Black enough. But the people who hate us still hate us. It doesn't matter whether, you know, we were raised by white people or not. They see the color of our skin and they run. And so that definitely has tied into, you know, my intersectionality, because I'm a mess, right? Like, I'm just a whole mix of stuff. I am, you know, non-binary. I am queer as fuck. That was it. That was the one. Sorry. That was the one.
We did it, Reddit.
We did it. It took us 40 minutes. That's the one.
I'm proud of
sorry.
us. That's a new record, honestly.
It is a record. I have ADHD. I suspect that I may be on the autism spectrum. Like, there's a lot here. And so finding out about asexuality, like, I knew it was a thing, and I was so supportive of people who were and identified as that, because I was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, that's valid. And then, like, for it to just kind of hit me, it's like, oh, that's what I am. And then having that experience of trying to, like, I hate saying it like this, but prove my Blackness on top of being able to accept who I am as an asexual person of color. It's hard. But I also have this gift of being in my 30s and not caring anymore what people think. And there's magic there, right? Because people can say what they want about me at this point. I'm like, you're not feeding me, financing me, or paying, you know, any, I can't say the other one. Not that I would, because it doesn't matter, because I don't like you. So it doesn't, like, it's irrelevant, but it definitely has been a journey. And the more that I'm starting to really come into my own and accept myself and love myself as I am, I'm learning about all the things that I did just to prove that I was worthy of something. And now I don't need to prove that to anybody, because I already know I am.
Damn, Skippy. Yeah, like, something that you kind of touched on a little bit was not like, I fortunately, like, I do have relationships with, though strangely, strange ones with both my biological parents, but my dad, and I don't know if anyone else has experienced this, but I feel like some of my core memories are tied to quotes that my parents say that they don't remember, or absolutely say that didn't happen. Perfect
100%. 100%. The parental gaslighting. 100%.
Oh my god. So, my dad quote, "You." This goes back to the A point made earlier. You have to be the best in your class, and then because you're black, you have to be better than them. And I was like, "Do you remember when you said that to me?" No, son, not at all. I don't think I ever said that. Well, where the hell did I get that from? A book? I don't think so. But at the same time, as part of that is, and sort of a subsect of that is, when it comes to the white people that you grew up with, you're one of the good ones.
Yeah, I got that all the
Yes.
time. I
Yes.
got that all the time.
Oh,
I
Raise your
black
hand.
person.
yeah,
Raise
I'm
your
the
hand if
model
you got called an
minority.
Oreo. Yeah.
Or how about raise your hand if you were told you were going through a white phase
I still get told that. Look at me. Go ahead, say it.
by your parent.
I get
Jeez.
gross.
No,
I used to
no,
get
that didn't happen.
disowned. I used to get disowned for liking white things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep,
And see,
that
like,
sounds about right.
Let
the
me take
flip
away your
side-
black card.
Yeah.
The flip side
Oh
of
my
that,
God,
like,
yeah.
I would start dressing in like Echo. Y'all remember Echo? Come on now.
Oh
Yeah.
God.
I can't be the only one.
Unfortunately, I remember
Right, but
it.
like that was my experience. That was my exposure. Because anytime I would like start listening to like 50 Cent and like all that and like throw my hands up in my bedroom, I would get yelled at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I grew up. Yeah, go ahead, Fair.
Oh, I was just gonna say, a lot of Raven, what you said with your story about your intersectionality, definitely resonated with me. But for like, not because I'm like adopted. I grew up with both my parents for the most part, Black AF family, whatever. But just like because of where I am, being surrounded by whiteness, and also feeling like wanting to be the good one, as we stated, and also like being treated as like, even from a young age, like somebody who is hypersexual, even though I wasn't, like being sought after by, we shouldn't even get into that. Never mind, let's not get into that part. But I feel like a lot of people on this call know exactly what I was about to say.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But just like feeling like I had to prove myself by being a hypersexual being, even though it did not feel right.
Mm-hmm.
And again, with me just realizing that I'm ace, like it's one of those things where it's like I can go back and I can look at these experiences that I had and be like, okay, well, that's why I froze up, or that's why it didn't feel right to me. For a number of reasons why I should not have felt right to anybody. That's at least one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just it's an interesting and very weird experience having to go back and retroactively apply, like, oh, this is because you're ace. Oh, this is because you were absolutely not feeling
Yeah.
this. Oh, this is because you felt like you had to conform to something that like you were not built to conform to. And like, I mean, we're just built different, boo boo. It's just what it is, And like, but just what you said about all of that, outside of the circumstances of your adoption and whatnot, like that actually sounded like very similar in a lot of ways to the things that I felt growing up, just like needing to be that good Black person, or that I never dated a Black girl, wanting to be somebody's first Black experience, like, and thinking that was a great thing. And now I'm looking,
Exotic.
I'm like,
Yep.
girl, and the hating yourself part too, because I definitely hated myself, and like, and for a while, like up through, like, I think even through college, like so a lot of the actions that I took and things that I did were to feed into this idea of white supremacy, where I had to prove that I was good enough to be accepted by white people. And now I don't give a fuck, because I'm also in my 30s. Sorry, I dropped an F-bomb.
It's totally fine.
You don't have to bleep that, Robo. Sorry, boo-boo.
We are who we are. Jazz, Sade, anything you want to add to those things?
I was gonna kind of. Jazz, did you have something?
No, go ahead. You started talking first. I'll be
Okay.
last. It's all good. Yeah.
I would say that like kind of on top of the hypersexualizing was the concept of that the fact that I wasn't attracted to people or like I didn't have the same experience attraction the same way was a waste was kind of what happened. So it's just like so I remember I forgot who this was and it was in Chicago because people kept on saying really dumb stuff to me. Um Whenever I was by myself and I'm like I just want to live my life, go to a bar and not have to talk to people. Like that was or if I did I came with friends for a reason. And when it came up in conversation they're like, "Oh, but you're so pretty." And I was like, "How does that have anything to do with anything? I can still want to look good or attractive for me or for my partner or for my group of friends that I'm with." So that felt weird. So like I was confused about that. Um, I would also I have another thing, but I my brain kind of left on that one. So Jess, if you want
It's
to take
all
that, and
good.
then I'll come back around eventually. It was gonna
Oh, sure.
happen.
Absolutely. We
Sure,
got time.
sure. Brace yourselves. That's not what I wanted to say. I want to say bear with me. But I guess it's interchangeable.
I can do
interchangeable.
both. I can do both.
I
I will hold my ass and then bear with you. Okay. Good.
I got a lot of thoughts. And I'm gonna try to be succinct. So first and foremost, that thing about like never feeling Black enough was like that resonated with me very deeply because it wasn't until like maybe 2019 that I started to like really embrace my Blackness. For a really long time, like I just denied it. I just pushed it away. My mom is white and Asian, but she definitely she doesn't know much about being Black, which makes sense. I guess I can't ask her to, but like definitely there were times where like for instance growing up I always like I would straighten my hair for instance, or I would like this is terrible but I would like not want to talk Black. So yeah, like I would always be like, oh, I'm like a perfect pristine, like I'm a good Black. Like a lot of people like would say that they were Blacker than me, or they'd be like, and it felt really bad. My dad, for instance, would be like, nope, I'm revoking your Black card. And like stuff like dancing, I wanted to bring that up. I can't dance for crap, for anything. I can't dance. So a lot of times he'd be like, nope, you're not my kid. So that felt really bad, and I hated myself for a really long time. I felt way more comfortable in my asexuality than I did my Blackness. It took me a really long time to understand that other people can't tell me how to be Black. They can't tell me how to be anything, but for specifically, they couldn't tell me how to be Black. Not even other Black people. So it took me a really long time to accept that about myself and start loving myself for it. We were talking about intersectionality. I wanted to point out one other thing. I have BPD, borderline personality disorder, and one of the symptoms is hypersexuality. I tick off every symptom except for that one. So I wanted to mention that because I'm not sure anybody ever did. In terms of like mental illness and stuff like that, when you have like a certain illness or disorder or disability or what have you that features hypersexuality and you are asexual, or I should specify like a sex repulsed asexual, it's very difficult to feel like you belong. I guess this is sort of what I'm saying in all of this. Being mixed and being sex repulsed asexual and being non-binary and all of these things kind of had me feeling incredibly bereft, and like I didn't fit anywhere, that I wasn't Black enough, or I wasn't queer enough, or I wasn't disabled enough, or what have you. I constantly felt like I was not good enough, and all of these things kind of fit together. It wasn't until, and honestly I'm still like this. It's still really difficult for me to feel Black enough in a space. Like I love each and every one of y'all. I definitely was feeling a bit nervous coming into this because I was like, I don't know how I'm supposed to act, how I'm not supposed to act. Yeah, no, and I know this logically. Look, I know logically. But like it's really difficult to believe until you get there. And I just want to, like I want to tell all y'all and all y'all out there as well that you are enough just the way that you are. And nobody can tell you crap. Nobody can tell you anything about who you are. You know who you are. That's it.
I just
feel
want
like-
to.
I was just going to really quick before you go on, Raven. I would like to remind the panel that we can say shit.
It's the F word.
Listen.
Y'all can't tell me shit.
There we go.
That was liberating. Oh,
There you go.
okay,
There you go.
We
There
have
it
we have to
is.
censor all of them because it's just a spiral effect.
Yeah,
It's a
it
snowball
is.
effect.
If
We
I
gotta
start-
censor
Fair,
all of
fair.
this.
What do you think I'm doing? I'm going the opposite. I'm a rebel, baby.
Robos. I think I heard Robos sigh.
Yeah. Like, he knew what he signed up for. Raven, go for it.
I just want to say, like, kind of just to put things into perspective. I resonate with all of that. What all of y'all said, I resonate with. And I think it's important for us to be here, specifically because, like you said, Jazz, there's not one way to be Black, right? We are all valid in who we are as people, as Black people, as queer people, as ace people. And it took me a long time and some really traumatic stuff, specifically with my daughter's birth, for me to understand that I don't need to follow anything. I can carve my own path. And that's exactly what we are doing. And I think that should be commended. I think all of us showing up and expressing ourselves and truly just telling our truth and telling it unapologetically is something that should be celebrated. So I'm really, really honored to be here with y'all. And I feel that because I was like, I'm not Black enough to be here. Like I am,
Yeah, you are.
I am maybe, but
Blackity black.
still out here like, yo, Raven ain't even Black. You see what Raven's wearing? Why she wearing that goth shit? And it's like, because I'm lit.
Because it's
Yo.
cute. Because it's cute, bitch.
It's cute.
What do you mean?
And we need more
It's
Black gods out there in the
cute.
world.
Yes.
We really
Because
do.
first of all, let's be honest. Most of the shit we invented ourselves. So like we're just
Say it
taking
again.
it back. We're just taking
There
it
is
back at this
nothing more
point.
Say it
alternative.
louder for the people in the back.
The people at home
There
and in
is
the back.
nothing more alternative than being Black. Okay.
Right.
So why
Facts.
like I'm just gonna live it. But no, I think it's really important to just like say that. Like it is important, and what we are doing and who we are and the paths that we are creating for ourselves and people like us is so important, and it is often so overlooked. So I will be here to like breathe life into y'all. I don't care.
Right
Y'all
here.
deserve
Same.
it.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to.
Yeah, go fair.
I keep interrupting you.
No, it's totally cool. It's
You're
totally
not the
cool.
only person who could talk too much.
Fair.
I just wanted to double down on something Raven said, which is like there's no one way to be a Black person, because if you are a Black person, you are a Black person, period. Like everything you do, you're doing as a Black person. And all the other stuff like the things that people want to put on you, all that stuff doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, it's about like how you see yourself, how you define yourself, and the actions that you take as a person in this world. Like those are the things that matter at the end of the day. And like being Black is beautiful, and like I hate that like we live in a world that's constantly tries to make us feel that we are irrelevant, or it's not a good thing to be a Black person, and especially not a good thing to be like an asexual person either, because like I know that gets shit on a lot. But like just know that like you're valid, you're beautiful, and like you are worthy of whatever levels of affection you are looking for. Sometimes it's none, and that's fine too.
Exactly. I heard a quote somebody said that still resonates with me, is like being Black is as punk rock as is possible. And like I was like, damn, like, that super resonates with me, because I was a kid that grew up listening to punk rock and listening to Limp Bizkit and Linkin Park and Sum 41 and not 50 Cent. Though I do appreciate 50 Cent's talent, for example. So yeah, do whatever you want to do. Just be you. Sade, what's up?
Yes, I remembered what I was going to say.
Let's
Granted,
go.
it's well past the point because we went down
It's
a couple
totally
different
cool.
paths. I apologize. But Jazz reminded me with dancing. So with going out specifically, like getting dressed up, looking amazing. Like that's what I love doing, going out and feeling like empowered, confident, stuff like that. But I look a certain way. So I look like I'm hunting for someone, I suppose is what would happen. If I went to a club, I knew all the dances because it was fun. Either with, I would always go with friends, it didn't matter. But it would always be this weird, going back to touch a little bit, someone pulling me into a dance without asking. Um, and
Oh.
and it depended. So because someone was like, they did the asking with the touch, like, and it was like, oh, cool. But then there was the pulling into a dance and starting dancing with me, whether it came from behind or from like within my view, and it was expected that I would automatically like want to. Was the feeling there? And I was like, no. And a lot of those dances require movement, like specific movement. And I'm like, I don't know you. So then I would literally, within dancing, like push them away and tell them, nah, this is for me. This is me time. Back up. Can't say the F word. Back, back up. Leave me alone. Or I would have my friends that knew how I felt about it and like immediately come in and like keep an eye on that. Or if my partner was there, obviously. So yeah, it was that's the only thing I had to add to that. It was the expectation of wanting to be physical in that setting, or that's what I wanted. That was the end goal going out for the night. But I was like, no, just want to have fun and socialize and listen to music and like go hang out until like 2 o'clock in the morning with friends, get drunk, like stuff like that. So yeah.
And I'll have you go, Jazz, as well. But I would just anecdotally say, Shade, timing wise, you were perfect because I was going to segue into social stuff anyway. So so you're spot the hell on. Jazz, what's up?
Did you want me to wait? Because I can wait until
No,
after the
go
break.
for it.
No, okay. I did want to mention that because I used to club a lot when I was younger. Starting when I was like younger, like 17, 18. Would go to like queer clubs, for instance, in Seattle. Like I grew up in Seattle, so it's a very queer place in general. But I started wearing it. I started wearing my almost flipped all y'all off. I started wearing my ring. I started wearing an ace ring specifically because of the fact that it's great. You can find them at most rock stores. This is Obsidian. Obsidian breaks really easily, so you got to be careful. But like there are other variations. I think it's just that Obsidian is the cheapest for me. But yes, most rock stores or Amazon if you really want to go there. Up to y'all. What was I saying? Oh,
Exactly.
clubbing. Yes.
Back to clubbing.
Clubbing. I started to wear ace rings because I would get that a lot of folks would come up and want to do the bump and grind, and I'm not about that at all ever. So a lot of times I would just hold up my hand, and a lot of people don't know what an ace ring is, but they're drunk enough to think that it's on the ring finger, so they're gonna like, oh yeah, you're married, okay, cool. And that's enough for me. But I did want to say that like do we have time for this? Maybe. No, I don't think we do.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Really? I don't. Well, I want to check with y'all first.
Because I'll say this because I was gonna do a spicy cliffhanger. So go for it.
Okay. I wanted to very briefly, and first I want to check with all of you first if I could mention, not necessarily go into detail with, but mention sexual assault. I wanted to see if that was okay with everyone.
Content warning.
Can I? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm cool.
Okay, cool. Just a general content warning for sexual assault because I'm not going to go into detail, but it is a very prominent part about being asexual and especially sex repulsed asexual. I started wearing my ace ring specifically because I knew going out that if anything were to happen, I needed proof that I was not asking for it. This is my proof. This is my proof that I was not asking for it. I will never be asking for it. So I have had experiences, especially, and they've always been, I know you started to say this, but we didn't actually say it. It's always been Black men who will look at me and assume that that is something that I want, that their attention is something that I want, and my refusal is just like a way of playing hard to get. That has always been a problem for me, and experiencing the consequences. I shouldn't say consequences, it's not my fault that they can't take no for an answer, but just the ramifications of what happens when you say no. It doesn't matter what they think, or it doesn't matter how they think of asexuality or they don't think of asexuality. A lot of times it's almost an invitation, it's like a challenge, it's what they want. So it's at the risk of over sharing. I started, this was my way of being safe, was wearing my ace ring. Yeah, I'm sorry that I went from
Well
clothing
said.
to that.
No,
but
please.
yeah.
I'm so glad. No, I'm super glad you shared that. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for
Mhm.
doing so. As
Shade
far
or
as
spicy
the
cliffhanger.
so super spicy cliffhanger, folks. So we've got a pending question from Fallen Angel Iridian, which is: do you think that being ace is more acceptable or less acceptable in the Black community, and is it a white man's disease? Here's the spicy cliffhanger. I have an article that I would like to quote that talks a little bit about that. So when we come back from break, we'll start there. So grab something to drink, do a little stretchy stretch, make sure to take care of yourself, and we'll be back in about 10 minutes with the conclusion of this wonderful panel. So stay tuned. Welcome back to this wonderful A Squad Black AF panel. Yeah, that's right. I said it because it's true. Anyway, we're going to pick up right where we left off with, in the midst of a question from Fallen Angel Iridian, who asked, do you think being ace is more acceptable or less acceptable in the Black community? Is it a white man's disease? Now, this does not, and I mentioned before the break, I have an article that talks a little bit about that. This does not invalidate anything that we're about to talk about personally, to be very clear. This just adds a little seasoning to the sauce, so to speak. This is actually a article from rebelliousmagazine.com entitled "Asexuals of Color Still Seek to Validate Their Sexuality." And I just wanted to talk or walk you through two paragraphs here, which are near the end of the article. Though the ace community's growth in the past couple of decades is notable, the community at large has mostly served as a safe space for white asexuals. A 2016 Global Ace Community Survey, I'm going to say that again, a 2016, 7 years ago we're talking about here, found that 77% of the ace identified participants were white. This isn't too surprising, as white people tend to have more privilege to explore their sexuality than BIPOC individuals. Additionally, most of the digital ace community's founders were white. Quote, yet asexuality isn't only associated with whiteness because of its most notable faces. Asexuality is also associated with whiteness because of the complicated ways that sexuality itself intersects with race. Angela Chen states in her book, Ace, What Asexuality Reveals About Desire, Society, and the Meaning of Sex. Yes, diversifying spaces online and IRL can be hard. As the ACE community continues to grow, BIPOC ACEs speaking on our experiences should be listened to and affirmed by white ACEs and all allosexual people alike. White ACEs with platforms in the community and beyond should especially take the initiative, this is a quote, take the initiative to actively address anti-Blackness. They need to credit the Black ACEs they learn from, and they need to acknowledge the fact of their their whiteness helps to propel their careers. Sharonda explains in the same interview, this is a quote from earlier, as even within the ACE community, Black and POC asexuals often endure the harm of white supremacy and or racial antagonism with little to no defense or solidarity from white asexuals. So I thought that was an important place to start. And I'm curious as to I'm sure we'll have spectrums of answers based off of what we've experienced thus far. So Raven, I know you mentioned that you answered it in chat, but I'd love to start with you here.
Yeah. I think that even as Black people, we perceive each other based on some societal biases, right? So, Blackness is not something that we can hide. It is one of our very first identifiable markers. So when somebody is looking around the room, they are automatically classifying people by the color of their skin. You can, unless you are like very, very much like repping asexuality, which yes, you should. It's amazing. That you can't really tell that. That's a more intimate question. It is not identifiable just by the color of your skin. So, yeah, I think that even within our own groups, within our own like communities, we are still kind of being looked over, or some of, you know, the things that we have to deal with, especially with Black men, sorry, not sorry, is to fit this mold of being these sexual beings, because when they look at us, that is what they see. It is a bias that they have perpetuated, just based off of, you know, what society has taught them. Um, so yeah, I do think that, you know, it is still less acceptable, mostly because one, there's a lot of people in the community who are severely ignorant about it, and two, there are still the biases that Black folks are hanging on to for other Black folks, and are not really willing, or they're willfully ignorant, right? A lot of it is just willful ignorance. It's not just not knowing, it's not knowing and not caring.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that, and kind of just going back to the question too. Um, I think the like understanding, like, you know, oh, it being a white man's disease. I don't think I've ever heard asexuality phrased that way. Um, and I think, like, I mean, I have never heard any Black person talk that way, to be honest with you, like, for anything really, like, and I just think it's like a little disingenuous to associate it with whiteness, because I mean, it's this isn't like a colonization thing, you know. It is more of like these are aspects that, like, a lot of people struggle with, not even just Black people, other people of color as well, like having to
Certainly.
I do definitely think it's like an ignorance thing within the community, but because we have not been allowed the space to talk about it within the frame of being Black as well, and having and being able to explore that intersectionality, because it is so saturated with whiteness. But I wouldn't call it a white man's disease. I would just say it's just like a lot of things, including TTRPGs, which a lot of us on here, you know, have as a hobby. It is just saturated with white people. And we have to make space for ourselves, because we can't wait for space to be made for us. So
Yeah, kicking open our own doors. It's locked. No, it's not.
where's the lock at, though? Where it at?
Where it at though?
I would say that never really heard of it mentioned as a white man's disease, but it might not have been said that way, I suppose. Might have been more implied that, like, oh no, it's either this or that, it's binary. Like, you're either, like, it wasn't even brought up that, like, oh, you're attracted to someone or not. It's like, oh, you might not have met the right person yet, or hey, like, things happen, you're a late bloomer kind of situation would come up.
Oh boy.
So it was meant to kind of be more like, hey, things might, like, it's meant to, it was said in a way, at least to me, that, like, hey, in your own time. So, like, whoever told me, I'm assuming it was my mom, that, like, hey, in your own time, it's okay. So presented in a way that was kind, but also it was me finding it out and having this conversation that, like, oh, demisexuality, what it is. It was confusing for my mom. It was confusing for my extended family, because they didn't understand that. Like, I had a conversation of what demisexuality is, and they're like, oh, so, like, life, right? Where, like, oh, you meet the one, and you fall in love with them, you know, they're the one, you know, like, in terms of movies and romance, like how it's romanticized, you find the one in your life, and then you just grow old together. And I'm like, no. I literally had to, like, no, like, so you only find the one and you're only attracted to the one. And then when I said it like that, they're like, oh, I see what you mean. Like, because you find attraction to other people, or you feel like the sexual attraction to people, and you feel like you want to do something about it. I'm like, no, I don't want to do anything about it. That's the point. And they're like, oh. And then they would say, that's weird. Like, right afterwards, you know, like in a funny way, not trying to hurt my feelings, but also No, it's not weird. It's some people are like that and they learn from it. And usually I have the conversation with them and they try to like to continue with learning that or try to understand that. But now they know, or they don't, and they don't want to. To what Raven said, like they don't know and they don't care. I have some family members like that. Um, but yeah, like it's the concept of not necessarily bought in whiteness on that one for my family at the very least, or the people I've talked with, but it was don't have the luxury to uh, understand that it is vast. It is a spectrum. There's options other than this or that. Is the best way to put it because sometimes that's easier. Or like, I guess the best way to put it.
Well said. Jazz or Basil? Basil, go for it.
Yeah, I was just thinking about it while Sade was talking about it because I realized at first I was like, no, my parents never said anything like that, and then my brain's like, hey, it's me from the default where you keep all the unpleasant memories, and I was like, oh right, because I did remember one case where I don't know, college Basil just really enjoyed poking their family members, even though I knew every time it would end badly. As they were picking me up from college, I was leaving, and it was like Pride Week or some Gay Pride Week, something. And so that car ride was horrible. And then when we got home, I was trying to explain because for some reason my horrible, horrible cousin, he got to come along. I don't know why he didn't help with anything. I do not like that man. But I was trying to explain asexuality to them. And of course, my cousin trots out that, oh, what are they attracted to furniture? And usually my mom is good about pushing back on my cousin being ill-informed, but instead, with the exception of my sibling, obviously, because Briar's awesome and also asexual, everyone laughed, and I was like, that's not funny, you guys. And at the time, it was one of those cases where it's like, I'm just really passionate about asexual people. I'm not asexual, my friend is, so knock it off. And I was trying to explain, and my mom pretty much did say, ah, man, that's some white people shit. Like, they didn't say, like, oh, it's a white man's disease, but a lot of stuff was, oh, that's some white people shit. Anxiety? No, that's it. That's white people shit. What are we talking about? Like, so having to deal with that, you know, and there was also, you know, I guess like sort of like a blanket sort of content warning for religious behavior. My mom was constantly like, "Oh, you just need to pray about it. You can just not so much about being queer. Thankfully, she did not try to pray away the gay, but she was very much like, "Oh, you're not feeling, you know, sexual urges? Well, just that's because you don't read your Bible. That's because you're not connected to God." And I'm like, that how does mom,
I'm
how does
sorry,
that
was God a sexual? I'm sorry.
How does that work? I'm so confused. I'm sorry.
flag on the play. Flag on the play. What does that mean?
Right. Unnecessary religion, 15-yard penalty,
to
automatic
this
first
day,
down.
I'll be honest, I don't know. I don't know. And when I tried again later on, after my parents had divorced again, thank you, Jesus. They were married, then they, oh no, they got married, then they got divorced, then they got married again, and then thankfully they got divorced for the final time. But when they were last talking before my mom passed away, it looked like they were going to get married again, despite me and my siblings saying, please, just stop. Third time is not the charm, just don't. But when I tried to explain it to my dad back in, oh gosh, I think this is before I started my full-time job. So sometime like 2015, 2016, somewhere around in there, before I changed departments, I was trying once again to explain asexuality to him because it had been some time and he was, you know, living in his own apartment. He had some time to reflect. I thought about his life choices. But when I explained it to him again and he actually listened, all he said was, you need to stop hanging around all them white people. And I was like, but daddy, what does that have to do with me? And he's like, well, because you hang out with all those queer friends of yours and they're this and they're that, and this person's bisexual, this one's trisexual. I'm like, Dad, what the hell is a trisexual? Explain it to me. Like right now, give me the definition.
You
He's
try
like,
everything once. Just kidding.
I mean, trisexual sounds lit. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You
Right?
try everything once. That's trisexual.
and he couldn't. And I was just like, Dad, can't you just be happy for me? And he's like, Daddy is happy for you. But you know, I'm too old. I just don't get it. And he still don't, but you know, bless him. But yeah,
Yeah.
in general, I'd say with the community, because I remember once at my job, I was trying to explain my concerns to two of my Black coworkers about dating, because I was like, well, I don't want to lead anyone on and I don't want to waste anyone's time. Doesn't it make more sense for me at the first date just to be like, hey man, or person, doesn't matter. Hey, person, we're on this date, but as we keep dating, if this goes well, there's not going to be any sort of fun bedroom hanky panky going on unless we're like, I don't know, playing card games in there or something. But they were like, the coworker that I really looked up to, she was like, he doesn't need to know all that. You don't have to tell them anything about that. And I'm like, isn't that deceptive? And they're like, nah. And I was like, trying to imagine a scenario where it's like, okay, well, let's go to bed. And I turn around and they're starting to get undressed, and it's like, oh, are you getting comfy for bed? What are you doing? What's in your pocket? What's up? I'm like, that'd be awkward, wouldn't it?
I want to set the precedent now that asexual hanky panky in the bedroom is actually just us destroying somebody at Uno.
Yes. Yes.
That's amazing.
I actually used to keep Uno cards like in my pocket, and like I had like these deep pockets of my shorts just to play Uno, which my mom was like, sweetie, that's weird. Why are you just walking around with that?
I use Uno cards as safety tools for my games, okay?
There you go.
Great
There
idea.
you go. Winner, chicken dinner.
A functional reason for them. I just like challenging people to Uno matches because I was a weird kid.
I respect
I still am now.
I mean, to be honest, I like making sure that my spouse knows that I'm still the boss by beating his ass in Uno. That's why we got Uno cards in the bedroom.
Establish dominance.
I got you. He gotta know. He gotta know.
Absolutely. Jazz, anything to add to that question?
I feel like everybody said everything already. I did want to briefly brush over the question that we got earlier in the chat because we kind of mentioned it, but Fallen Angel Ridian said, have you ever encountered the you never had the right lover encounter? Yes.
Oh yes.
Nigga, I had that yesterday. And 3 days before that. And
in this economy?
Oh
On
this
Beyonce's internet?
In this Panasonic? What? I'm still social distancing, boo boo.
I don't think it's any of y'all business. But no, like
Not
for
on
instance,
SZA's
my
internet.
coworkers or something like that. Yeah, just you just haven't found the right man. That's my favorite one. The right man.
Oh Jesus.
If I was going to fall in love with anyone, it would not be a man. I'm so sorry. Also, that's not true. One of my only crush is a man, Kim Namjoon from BTS. If you are free, I am free. Please call me. But
clip send.
Yeah, just send this.
No. However, men are great. Men are great, and they deserve love. Thank you. But no. I have constantly, that is the first thing people say. And I would like to know why asexuality is such a confusing concept for people, because it's not that hard to wrap your head around. Just like not wanting that. Like there's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot more nuance.
like,
there's a lot more nuance to this. Obviously, there's a whole ass spectrum. However, it's not that difficult.
It's pretty. It's pretty bare bones.
Just don't do me.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Right.
Also, Jazz, I do want to say that, like, although I am attracted to men, I feel like every time I am attracted to a man, it is against my will.
It's always against your will.
No, but I mean,
it's against your
like,
better judgment, and yes.
Yeah, it's like, oh God, okay, I guess we're doing this. All right.
However, I do also love men. I think that they deserve.
I do love men, and I think they deserve love.
I think they deserve what they deserve, and nothing more than that.
Deserve what they deserve, but also, like, no more toxic masculinity. But that's another
You're
panel.
both
So
absolutely
hi.
lovely.
That is a perfect segue because, my friends, and this is actually another question that Fallen Angel asked, which was around being some black man like myself. Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Actually, in all seriousness, something that I've actually been struggling with understanding is we talk about the intersectionality between asexuality and being black, but there's also like recognizing that thank you, Cooper, that I also have privilege as a cis male, and everything you're saying about black men is totally true and valid, and I want to make sure that, like, and I'm always cognizant of giving space and understanding that I've not had to deal with any of the stories around like hypersexuality. We, in many cases, my nightclub experiences is very much like Sade's was trying to be, which is like, I'm just gonna go out, hang out, get drunk, and dance, and have a good time and laugh and do hood rat shit with my friends, without having to deal with the social pressure of like, or requirement of doing something that I don't want to do. And then so, but also at the same time, from an ace perspective, my fellow black friends are, she's looking at you, man. What are you talking about? I don't know what you mean. What is that? What is flirting? Please explain. But the reason why I stopped at toxic masculinity is we're gonna talk a little bit about barbershops, friends. I despise black barbershops. What's the Star Wars quote around scum and villainy? I don't think there's ever, in my experience, ever a better experience of toxic masculinity than black barbershops. My barber is a cis female lesbian, and she's amazing, and she does good shit with black hair and red. I just had to get that out into the wild. That is all. Anyway, anything further on that question before we move on?
I had a quick thing as I just remembered while Jazz was talking about explaining asexuality to people. So, you know, for the most part, probably all had this experience when you were kids where one of your parents gave you like the banana talk about, you know, what to do when you meet someone and what. See, Jazz gets and she's laughing. And so my sibling and I did not really enjoy that. I did not at all. I thought it was a waste of a banana because I love bananas. But I could not eat that banana after it had been used for that purpose. Although my mom was just happily munching away. But then I had the idea of, oh, well, mom will get this. So I took a banana off the bunch and started following her around, poking her with it, because mom is just kind of neutral on bananas. So I was trying to explain to her through the banana. I'm like, don't you want a banana? Eat the banana. It's delicious. Banana, banana. Until eventually she was like, stop. What are you doing? I don't want a banana. I'm not interested in bananas. Mommy would like to take a nap. And I'm like, see, mom, that's me, but with 6. Do you get it now? And then she was like, oh, honey, that's not how that works. And I was like, yeah, are you sure though? Because you seem like you almost got it. Here, I'll get a different banana. And she was like, sweetie, it's not the banana. One day you'll find the right banana, and then that banana will. I'm like, okay, no fruit analogies. Please don't ruin fruits. No, gross, goodbye. And I kind of fled into my room. But hilariously, though it did not work on my mom, it actually did work on one of my friends who I kept jabbing with a banana, and then they immediately got it, and they were like, oh, cool, I get it now. Okay, I'll stop mentioning it. And so I can't remember which friend this was, but after that, they would just be like, oh, yeah, that person's cute, right? But they finally stopped doing that. And yeah, when we get alone, I'm like, please, sweet baby Jesus, don't. I'm like, I'm glad that you're going to go have a good time, but don't describe it to me at all. Yes, you just haven't eaten the right banana yet. Maybe I need a plantain. Although, you know, this might be, this is we were talking about revoking the black card, but I don't like plantains. They're not sweet enough.
I have to go.
Fair enough.
I have to leave. I am a Caribbean woman. I have to leave, honey. That is, we have plantains with everything.
I appreciate them. They don't taste sweet enough to me. And you know, then my family's always like, well, that's because you just want a banana. Okay, we're having plantains though. And I'm like, no.
Amazing. So as we kind of push forward into some other questions here, that's how we roll. Hello, Damien. Asks a very fascinating question, which is, are there legislative protections in place for asexual discrimination in the workplace where you live? I think it's an obvious question in the U.S., but I'd love for us to tackle it together, I suppose.
I'm just gonna say real quick.
Go for it. Go for it, Raven.
The nice thing about it is the last job that I worked out, a lot of us were asexual.
What's that like?
Well, a lot of us were asexual. We were somewhere on the queer spectrum. We were neurodivergent. We were disabled. So we understood each other. It was really nice. But now I work for myself, which is nice. I know that where I am, there is genuine or generally protections in place for discrimination against sexual orientation and identity in the workplace. It doesn't stop people from being assholes. Am I allowed to say that? You might have to
Yes.
bleep that out.
I mean,
Okay.
you already said it, so
I mean, you know, it
We're
is what it
here
is. I
now.
can't take
I
it back.
adore
I
you
will
so
I will donate $5 to charity. I don't care. That's fine.
It's cool.
But yeah, it doesn't, just because they're there doesn't mean that people aren't discriminated against, because I did see it happen when I was working in a brick and mortar store for a large electronics retailer company. And their subdivision of you know, computer fixing, which I cannot say, you know, but you get it. You get it.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
where there was somebody who was transitioning, and they were subtly given less and less hours.
Mm.
Um, and when I brought it up and I filed a complaint with HR, nothing happened. So while legally, yes, there are legislative things in place, there are always loopholes, and I've seen them taken advantage of more times than I can count.
Yeah, I mean, I could just answer this simply because I don't have an experience like what Raven just described.
Sure.
But I mean, generally speaking, there are gender and sexual orientation, and gender expression protections where I am as well. Um, and I mean, my job, we go through like anti-harassment training and all that every single year. So, I have not experienced any discrimination regarding my sexuality at the workplace, but it's also, I mean, frankly, it's not really anybody's business what my, my sexual preference is or anything like that. So I don't talk about it with, I mean, not they ain't my friends, so I ain't talking about that with them.
Jess?
Agree with.
Oh, go. Yeah, shall I go
no,
for it?
go, Jess. Oh, but other than that, I was gonna agree because similarly, like I always see it. It's not their business. Personally, they same thing going through the training every year. I would say every year, like the things to discuss get like more detailed, which is great. So like they're like learning and trying to push that forward, but that's about it. I would appreciate it if there was more than just the required digital test or training that you do at home, because I work from home, or if you're at the office, you have to do this and it's mandatory, and it takes about anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, depending on how many times you have to click, and then it's mind numbing sometimes. I would appreciate there being more talks, which I had at a previous job, which they did have like seminars to go to talk about these things. They didn't do it though. Like they didn't listen. It was one of those things that was required, but it didn't matter, unfortunately. But at least they took the steps too. I personally haven't been discriminated against, but also it's not their business. If someone in the design department that I work asks me a specific question about a specific thing, and I trust them enough, sure. Otherwise, I'll tell them like, why does it have to do with my job? Why does it have to do with the work I do? I run a whole design department. I would love for you to find out and try to do something about it, because I will leave. I have no problems. None whatsoever. Goodbye and good day.
Jess?
So I I have the opposite experience for a couple of reasons. One, I work in food service, which I think puts me in contact with a lot more people on a regular basis. In a panini? Yes, in a panini, unfortunately. And also I overshare everything. So I'll tell you about my sex life, which is to say there is none. I will tell you about my love life, which is to say there is none, except for you, Namjoon, only you, Namjoon. However, I am very careful about how I portray that, because I'm like a wealth of information when it comes to this sort of thing. And if you have questions, I totally want to answer every question that you have that is within my ability, with the caveat that not all asexuals are the same, and in fact are rarely the same. And I love talking about my asexuality. It's the thing that I'm the most comfortable with about myself, and I think that I'm really blessed, because it's like I'm like on the like spectrum, which is not so much like a line so much as it is like a nebulous gaseous cloud, I'm like way over here, which is like no all the time. So it's really easy for me to be like, yeah, my answer is no, my interest is no, my what do you call it, my participation is no. All of this is really easy for me to talk about, and also, you know, like inform the different types of identities that are out there. I really enjoy talking about it and educating people about it, and oversharing every single part of my life. It's just a thing with me. So that is my experience. I don't know if that's a good thing or not.
The jury is out, as they say. Basil.
Yeah, so I think, you know, the answer can be summed up like this. I live in Florida. I work for the government. Um, so in terms of protections, and at my last job, I decided to test out that whole we protect gender identity. It didn't go well. I was jobless for a month for various reasons.
Jeez.
But hey, back at my original first job with a boss that is super chill. So, you know, there are protections, you know, for the stuff that everyone else has said. Nobody at any of my jobs has known I'm asexual, except for the one time I mentioned it with those coworkers, but I'm sure they've forgotten. Usually I honestly at this point test the waters instead with my gender identity. And depending on whether they're just like, oh, cool, or get weird about it, will dictate whether I share the rest of the information, because I too tend to overshare a lot. I used to do that a lot too when I first started working working at all. But then I started dialing it back because people kept getting weird about it. Like one of my coworkers now is weird about my gender identity and about my pronouns, which is funny. I actually have a giant wooden sign on my door now, and people still get it wrong. So I don't have a whole lot of faith, because of where I am and where I work, that people would just be like, okay. Like the one person I probably thought would just be cool with it, because I think they always mentioned they had partners, but then those people tend to move out of where I work and into like the private field. So the funny thing was my last job was with libraries. So I thought, hey, you know, if anywhere was going to be super accepting, it'd be here. No, it's maybe if you're white. If you're white, yes. Oh, how they love you if you're a white person working in the library sector. They just wanna hear everything. But when you're not, it just causes so many problems. I have stories. Find me on Twitter. I will tell you the stories.
So as we begin to circle into the close of our evening, kind of combine a few of the pending questions and a couple that I have, and we're going to talk a little bit more specifically around communities. We talked a little bit about the ACE community. We've kind of dabbled a little bit around the TTRPG community. So let's kind of unpack that a bit. So how has your experience in the TTRPG space impacted that intersectionality of being Black and ACE, and how so? Go for it, Jess. And then Faye, you're next.
I'm sorry, man. I just totally.
It's okay.
You were like, I've been waiting for this moment.
I have been waiting for this moment.
I was waiting for you to kick down the door, and now I'm just following you close.
All right, cool.
There
No,
we
I got
go.
you. There is a precedent about TTRPGs, which is to say flirting with your friends. I don't want to do that. I love you all so much. That is not what I want to do with you, except for you, Sade, because I love Damien and he's great. Yeah. I actually very recently kind of got into like starting to dip my toe into like flirting or like even just like opening the door for my characters to romance other characters, be them PCs or NPCs. It is so difficult to enter a space that is so saturated with romance and sex, so saturated with it. There are you know, certain games that are like built, like the mechanics are built on romancing other characters. Dating sims. What is a dating sim? Why would you do this? I'm sorry. I understand and I recognize, and y'all are valid for wanting things like that. That is definitely not my experience, and I feel very lonely a lot of the time, and I feel ashamed a lot of the time when we are doing things like safety tools, and I have to be on, you know, my red X list is like no sex, no flirting with me, no doing this and doing that. I'm not comfortable with it. It makes me feel really bad. There's like, for instance, being sex repulsed and asexual can be a huge challenge for me, because a lot of people in the TTRPG space are queer, and they want to explore their queerness in a, you know, a romantic and sexual lens, and me being uncomfortable with that makes them think that I'm trying to censor them, or that I'm trying to dampen their way of exploration. I don't want to do that to people, but I also want to feel safe. So I have been sitting on this for a while. It makes me feel really bad. I don't enjoy it. I don't a lot of times feel very safe going into games, and having the expectation be that there will be romance and there will be sex, and you're just gonna have to deal with it. And a lot of times I find myself settling. It sucks.
Yeah, go
I
for
don't know
it.
how to
Fair.
follow that up. No,
I'm so sorry. I should have waited. I apologize.
Jazz. I appreciate everything that you said. It definitely, it's not my experience, but like I can definitely appreciate where you're coming from, just because like, yeah, it is very much saturated with romance and sexual exploration and stuff like that. And sometimes you just like, I get that enough in my real life. I don't want this in my fantasy too. It's like a lot of stuff that I'm like, I don't want that in my fantasy, because if I wanted that, I would just turn the news on right now. Okay, like,
Sure.
we don't need to go there. For me, being ace in TTRPG space, like, I do have to give the space some credit, just because through people's stories and experience and sharing their experiences, like, it's because of the community that I recognize that I was asexual. So like that, it's definitely tied into that. For me, they're tied together. I don't necessarily have like an issue with like dating in TTRPGs. I actually love it, because I don't do it in my personal life, but I you know, my characters can go all out. That's fine. That's not, it's me, but it's also not me. And it's a way to maybe explore some things that like, you know, I mean, like I said earlier, like, I'm a sex positive asexual, like, that's fine. Like, you know, and like, there is a part of me that's like, I would love to find my person someday, you know, if that's in the cards. If it's not, that's fine too. So like, I do like to explore that within TTRPGs, but I think I've been fortunate enough in the tables that I've played at so far, where it's like, if we do explore it, it doesn't go too far. It's always a fade to black or something like that. Or it's like, or even if it's like, if there's no descriptions of what is happening, it's just like, it's implied, but has never been explicit. And I appreciate that. And I've also been fortunate enough to play with other people who identify as asexual. And like, you know, between the, like, me and April Reagan, who was on a panel earlier, during this event, like, you know, she is somebody that I would feel comfortable having a relationship in game with, because we understand each other, and like, we are both asexual. So it's like, it would be just a very, very sweet chaste romance, probably, you know what I mean? So it's like, I appreciate it for that. I appreciate the TTRPG space just for like helping me to find myself, really, and to explore that within my characters, because it does help me understand myself a little bit better as I play these characters, and like insert different aspects of myself into them.
Totally.
Oh.
Raven. Nope.
Raven.
Everyone's ready.
me.
Let's go.
I'm sorry. I'm
Raven.
sorry.
No, do it, Raven. Go. You're good.
So there are a couple things that I kind of want to point out here. One, I love when people give me, like, as I'm a little baby GM, but I love when people give me a lot of stuff that are like, it's just red, right? Because that makes
Sure.
it provides me with a challenge to tell a story where my players genuinely feel safe. So Jazz, I just want to let you know, like, you are welcome to sit at my table at any point. Because I will make sure that I create a story that you are going to enjoy, and that is going to be conducive to creating amazing stories with the people there. So I'm sending you an invite. You're welcome whenever. Two, you're welcome. I love you. Okay.
Also, I do want to say, as somebody who's going to be playing in that Monster of the Week game, can confirm Raven is definitely like all about just making everybody feel included. At
Yeah.
the table. So
like I
really
understand that.
appreciate.
Oh, thank you. Like I understand that flirting can be a thing, but it's not something that I would do knowing full well that somebody's not comfortable with that. Like you will know prior to session that that is a possibility. And if any of that makes you uncomfortable, like I'm going to work with you to be like, yes, you can keep this in, please take this out. Because inclusivity is important. And I think this space has taught me that. There's not a lot of that I truly see where people will do safety tools, but sometimes things like being asexual and having relationships and, sex between characters, like that gets overlooked as something that is, just normal. So it's not a concern for safety. And that's not necessarily the case. So I like being able to fill that niche because it needs to be. And nobody should feel guilty for being who they are and trying to play a game at a table. But for me personally, like being ace hasn't necessarily affected me because I'm very vocal about things that I like and do not like. And I am not afraid to say, hey, you know what? This isn't for me. I wish y'all luck, but I'm not your player. And I think it's helped me kind of like really set and enforce boundaries. And that may seem like a bad thing where it's like, oh, well, now Raven's not sitting here, but it's not, because at the end of the day, like we are our best and only advocates, our best and only true advocates, right? So being able to really like submerge myself into the space, because I'm still a little bit of a baby here, but and do so in a way that I know I'm not going to settle is really breathtaking and powerful. And I think that it's truly important to just have that representation there where it's like, yes, okay, maybe these two player characters are like in a relationship and that's fine. Y'all can do that, but here's where we need to fix it. Here's where we need to tweak. And if that's not okay with you, that's fine, but then we're going to squash it. There's no harm in putting boundaries down at the table as you would in real life. And I kind of went on a tangent there, but I just felt like that was.
It's a good tangent, and I really appreciated it.
I also don't think it was a tangent because I think it was important to this conversation.
Oh, well, thank you. I don't know. Sometimes my ADHD brain is just like, here's a thought, go with it. Right. So I think it's just important because we can create stories where everyone can sit. We can do that. That is not impossible. And I'm tired of people treating it as if it is an impossible task. It's really not, because you're going to tell an even better story than you thought you could by having to get creative. Being forced to be creative is really not that bad of a thing. I'm sorry. Like, Agreed. If that's what you're going to cry about, I have some choice words for you that I will not say here on this panel. Do better. Do better.
Follow up. I love the same thing. I love the long red list. That's my shit. I absolutely love that. I love it because it's like, oh, okay. Like the way that I, as a GM, kind of a baby GM as well, but like get more confident in that regard, is I'll have this set list of content warnings based off what I wrote already. I'll send that out, do the consent form, get the list of like reds, and I'm like, okay, so this is going to definitely change then because of what this player that I definitely want at my table is going to get removed. When it comes to usually with sex or romance, it is usually always failed or is always a yellow in some capacity. And then we'll talk about it. Based off of my experience before being a GM, though, this kind of adjusted how I handle rules at my table. Essentially, is because my first interaction with TTRPG was not D&D. It was Call of Cthulhu, which is horror and investigative. So romance was not really a thing unless it was talked about explicitly that it was going to happen. and that was at home games, and then of course the podcast. But then my first next game into the TTRPG space and the community was Monster Hearts 2, which is nothing but so like I was not prepped, and luckily people were respectful, but it was kind of expected, or you felt a little bit of the pressure to engage in a sexual way, until I had different GMs that when I did play it, were like, you don't have to. It's just intimacy. It could just be an interaction that you have with someone where you are close with them, whether you're having a deep talk or like you're staying up all night with them on the phone or whatever it might be, and you get to know each other. What I found that I appreciated a lot, and this is what I adopted for myself, was if someone did want to pursue a romantic relationship and did not want to like just jump into it, or like it felt natural, if it was a natural progression, we'll talk about it, we'll pause the game and talk about it. Or I'm like, hey, did you want to pursue a romantic relationship, and then have that conversation, and then let's set the boundaries as we go forward. Because as a demisexual GM, I was like, I just need to know, so I know how strong to go with the character, essentially. So I was like, am I flirting with you all the time, or am I flirting with a little bit, or are they just oblivious and they're like, oh, you like me? I can put in whatever you put out. I just want to make sure you're comfortable and I'm comfortable, and I'll let you know. So I wanted to create that safe space at the table for anyone to explore whatever they want to do with their character, or if they're like, hard no, I don't want to do romantic things. Another thing I would say is that like if I ever said like, hey, it doesn't happen all the time, but at the beginning I would say like, I'm demisexual, so I don't really want to talk about sexual. Oh, dog. I like I didn't want to talk about anything sexual, or like get too detailed into romantic situations or intimacy. Sometimes it would be oh, I'm just gonna avoid your character then, and then it felt very lonely, especially if it was a Monster Hearts game where I'm like, I still want to interact with people. It doesn't mean like I'm alone to like be the plot hound or story hound or something like that, which I still like doing, mind you. But I felt like I felt like in earlier times I felt like I was alone because romance was expected in some of those games.
I think. Sorry, I didn't mean to. I don't mean to
no,
interrupt you.
that was my natural
Just
conclusion.
something that you said, and something that I think Jazz and Raven also said. Like, I do think that like this is a time where we should explore like what intimacy actually means, because it doesn't have to be a romantic thing. Like, you can have an intimacy with a friend. Like, that's what best friends are. It's having an intimate relationship with somebody where you trust them enough to show your true self to a person. Jazz, are you saying something because you're muted? Okay, you sure?
I said a very sad. What's that like? Yeah, I be reacting when
Jess does that all the time.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
But I do think that's like, yeah, like it has been made normal to have these romantic relationships, and it doesn't have to be that way, especially if somebody at the table is not comfortable with that, or even just like if they are comfortable with it, but like you can still explore other definitions of intimacy that's not just sex and being in a romantic relationship with someone. And I think like just everything based on what everything said, I think like Raven and Sade, I appreciate that like the both of you are exploring these things and like giving that space at your tables for people to explore those things, because it's important. Like, because being ace doesn't necessarily mean that I don't want to have a connection with somebody. It's just like there's different ways to have a connection with somebody that isn't just romance.
Absolutely. Also, really quick, baby GMs, you're both two of the most incredible storytellers on the planet. I think we can, as the power vested in me, you're no longer baby GMs. Ta-da! I did it. You're
thank
welcome.
you. I've been knighted.
How dare you dare?
I will also back up that thank you. Like, yes, Raven, you have a very safe space at the session 0 as well. So I agree with what Fur said on that one, as well as Jazz. I will always promote you all the time. So yes, do sit at a table with Raven. Jazz is freaking amazing. Love working with them. They're amazing. That's it. That's all. Just all the gushes.
Yeah, room in that monster of the weekend. I'm free.
Oh man, amazing,
Oh,
Basil.
I mean-
I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if we caught.
I
quite caught that. Did
mean,
you want
Mm.
okay.
Oh,
Amazing.
Sorry.
No
We're doing
apologies
great.
required. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Everyone's doing wonderful. Basil.
Yeah, so I haven't really been in the TTRPG scene long. I got in when they were doing that Write Your First Adventure. I think I did that like in November of time. Wow, I don't remember when it was. 2019? That doesn't sound right. It was at some point in November. I remember because even though we had a month, I had half a month because halfway through November I had a chronic illness flare up and I just spent 2 weeks not doing anything. It was awful. But since then, I've been, writing things and then slowly realizing, hey, wait, I can just make my own games. No one can stop me. And so I started doing that since August of 2022. So not that long. And I always joke about it, but I've only played one session of D&D and one session of Pathfinder 1E. So my actual experience with conventional sort of tabletop is very little, and not for lack of people inviting me to things. It's just it seems like for the most part, everyone really likes to do things late at night. But late at night for me is like 8-9 p.m. So I've been trying not to yawn while talking. I'm a Leo, so when the sun is up, I am up. When the sun sets, I am sleepy. Like right now, Briar is shifting into night owl mode, so I'm sure Z is fully awake and raring to go, but I'll click on like Google Forms and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna finally be a part of a thing and do stuff tabletop. And they're like, hey, so we're starting at like 8 p.m. on a Sunday, go until 11 p.m. And I'm like, unless you just want to hear me going or God forbid me falling asleep
Basil
on camera.
ASMR.
No, unfortunately, sibling is the one that snores. I am the one that drools. So if my camera was still on, it would just be this awful river of just but so to that end,
Fluids. Think about the
yes,
fluids.
the return
Go
of the
back.
fluids. The fluids have returned. I mean, that is one of the reasons why Briar says that she's glad that we're not little kids and have to share a bed anymore, which
Fair enough.
apologies, sibling. I'm very sorry about that. Just be a river.
It's like
so in
eventually
terms
I'll make
of-
this gelatinous cube. Eventually.
So in terms of like being ace and being in the tabletop scene, it hasn't really come up, though. And now I can't remember who was talking about it, but the idea of like flirting with other people in like scenes, even outside of like actual plays, I have noticed that, and I'm like, is that because they're friends and they've known each other a while, or is this just the vibe? I can't quite get in that vibe. I don't know you like that. But I'm always the enthusiastic friend that cheers you on and throws a bunch of emojis into things. But I have seen like people like, oh, it's like, oh, I love you so much. You're super cute. You're amazing. I love your butt. And I'm like, I've known you maybe for like two weeks. I don't feel comfortable quite getting there yet. But you're amazing and you're awesome, and your hair looks great.
it's like, also, you've never seen my butt, so what are we talking about right now?
Yeah,
Right.
I'm like, have you? That's literally like usually my first thought. Like I'm always like autism brain. I'm like, have you seen their butt? Have you verified that the booty is banging, or are you just
Yeah.
making idle conjecture?
You're just saying this, but it could be a Hank Hill situation back there. So, like, let's not make assumptions, okay?
Would like to say
Oh,
that my booty is
gosh.
banging for anyone who was curious.
I mean, same.
Mhm.
Like,
Same.
yeah, no doubt.
Booty got me like, no.
Trust but verify.
Oh, bad pun, Jay, bad pun.
I love puns.
I am the exact opposite. I literally have a physical reaction. Anyway, only thing I would add to that is feel free to even try different pronouns with your TTRPG characters. That's something that I've been trying out myself. What's really funny about thinking about like romanticism or asking about relationships and stuff is like I can't, because like I'm not someone that like flirts ever, really. It's like, so a year from now, perhaps, maybe at one point in the future, perhaps both of these characters would like to kiss. What are your thoughts? Feel free to answer offline. And that's also valid as well, because consent is important. So last questions, kind of a two-parter here as we get to the end of our time together. And this kind of is overarching and ties into a question that D&D Jordan Lee was asking a little earlier, which is how could communities, whether that's the ACE community, TTRPG communities, better support you? And then comma, outros and anything that you want to signal boost on the way out. So starting with Sade.
Oh wow, was that deep sigh for me? Like
Well, no, I was like
It
I
was like an
stalling. I was stalling and I was like, who am I gonna,
Oh,
who
you
am I
were
gonna
okay, I
choose?
missed
And
that.
then
I'm so
you
sorry.
kind of half raised your hand and I was like, bah!
Oh, there it is. I would say like kind of fostering spaces like this to talk about it more often, because just doing research for intersectionality having to do with being Black and ace, or being more than just ace and like it's assumed that it's a white person thing, is there's not a lot of it. Doing research into it, doing research into it is kind of hard to find anything personally that was specific to my experiences as a Black femme. And I would like to see more things like this, because this was wonderful. First of all, let me just say this was wonderful to talk about it, to feel validated, to feel like same things that were bought up, which was were you ever the Oreo or called an Oreo? All these different experiences. Am I Black enough? Am I ace enough? All those things pass through my mind like at least once a week at some point. So I felt very connected with that. But the fact that I'm in my early 30s, feeling that more often now is not fair to any younger generation that wants to know. The fact that it's hard to find anything that is specific to us is unfortunate, and that we have to dive into the interwebs to find it, SZA's internet specifically, to find those things. But doing the research, I had found, I think you mentioned it, Jacob, which is Sharonda Brown had come up with a book refusing compulsory sexuality, having to do with Black asexual lens with a sex obsessed cultural thing. So that one I wanted to pick up and read more about, because that was the one that was like, yes, I like the chapters that they have, and I wanted to look into it a little bit more. And I think there was like a couple of since I love graphic novels, there was like a one called Loveless, which I wanted to read as well, because that one is tailored towards young adults, and I felt like that was I appreciated that very much, just seeing that pop up to talk about it. And there's a podcast called Sensual Self. There was an episode 65, To Be Young, Black, and Asexual, which is 1 hour. And I have that saved to listen to later. But the fact that, like I said, doing the research to find these things, those were the only things that I found just with the search. There are others for sure, but I would like there to be more, because there are more of us out there. I know for the fact, because we all just found each other. Like I'm looking into it more often. So please set up spaces like this. Make it okay to have these conversations and publish things and talk about things. So.
Well said. And where can you be found on the internet?
Right. I always forget that. Hi.
It's okay.
I am Ambrose or Sade. You can find me on Twitter as @SSAmbrose_. Everywhere else is SS Ambrose. I am the creative director and founder of Other Cider Studios. We're working on our final recording for our King Core Seekers, which is going to be Aftermath, brought to our channel. And it'll be released February 20th for the first episode, so stay tuned for that. And you can also find me on the Lovely Craftians podcast, 4 seasons. So if you like binge listening and you love Call of Cthulhu, and half of us are Black as fuck. Oh, sorry, can't say that. Black AF. By all means, it's a fun time. And yeah, to the next person.
Raven.
Hi, I'm gonna have to make this quick because my smallest child is wailing like a banshee.
Mm.
But I think kind of just to say a little bit about what Sade said, is like, it's important to have spaces like this. It's important to talk about this more, because the more we talk about it and the more we share our experiences, the less taboo, the less foreign it seems. I will say one of the things that I found that I didn't expect that made me feel seen was this last season of Big Mouth. Where there is a character who is a black they're in middle school. He's a black middle schooler who is finding out that he is asexual. And like figuring out what that means in the Big Mouth way, right? So it's weird because he's got these hormone monsters and they're like, yeah, like this will do it for you. And he's like, yeah, no, she's pretty, but no. And I was just like, Nani? I was freaking out. I'm just sitting there like glued to the TV. And then he talks to his aunt who's asexual. And she's just like, yeah, I don't need all that. I was like, yes, more of that, more of it right now. I swear to God, if you don't put more of this shit in your freaking media, I'm going to riot. It was so good. I'm sorry. It was listen, it was good. But yeah, I think just being able to have more of those experiences, more of being seen, is going to truly allow us as Black ace individuals to come forth and say, like, yeah, we're out here, we exist, we're not going anywhere. I'm sorry for the Nani. I'm sorry for the Nani.
No, you're not. No, you're
Never
not. I don't believe you.
apologize for the Nani.
I'm not, but
Nah.
like,
It was perfect.
Nani?
Nani.
I think we all felt that.
I absolutely
I felt
did.
it. I felt it in my heart. For sure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and
good.
you can find me Wreck-It Raven everywhere. If I like, do you need me to just like shut my camera down, because I don't want to like run and like mess up the layout? But I can tell you right now, it's probably because she's like, I dribbled, and she didn't. But I'm gonna have to console her for the next 15 minutes. Okay, I love
Send her
y'all.
our love.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, Robo, for putting this together. I'm so glad to have met all of you. Some before today, some today. Y'all are amazing. Remember that. Okay, I love you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Jazz.
I wasn't expecting that.
Boom.
Hello. So to answer the question, everybody already said it, but mostly just like providing the space for us to talk about it. Robo setting up this panel, this con is hugely helpful, specifically just because like for the TTRPG space, it's good to sink your no, it's not the teeth, it's like your claws. There you go. Sink your claws into like, no, we're not doing the fluids here.
That's right. Damn it.
Claws into spaces that are not usually reached when it comes to I guess educating and diversifying a space that for a very long time was predominantly let's say not diverse. So to have the space to explore all of this and to educate as we do, and to just see ourselves represented, I think is really important. So I mean, the only other thing I think that the TTRPG space could do for me specifically is hook me up to Kim Namjoon. Hey,
It
and
begins.
free!
Let's get this trending, y'all.
Hey,
yo.
Mentions. Let's go.
I just want to say I'm free tomorrow. I'm free the next day. I'm free on Monday. I just listen. All right. Okay. I'm done. I promise.
That was amazing.
You can find me on Twitter at Cinderscoria and anywhere else you might see social media except for Instagram. That Cinderscoria is not me. Give it back, dude. And if you were so interested in asexual representation, I have maybe 2 allosexual characters I've ever written and played. So like if you were to see me in a TTRPG AP or otherwise, yeah, they're all ace. I got you, boo. I got you. Also, I am writing, or I have written a short story in Being Ace, the anthology. You can add it on Goodreads right now if you are in the mood for short stories that cross multiple genres, all about asexual characters written by asexual authors all over the spectrum. I got you. Yeah. Add us. Namjoon, call me.
And that's
Basil.
for
Oh.
I just said I was done. I feel bad now.
Basil, what's up?
Yeah, so in terms of the best way to support the community, like everyone else has said, stuff like this has been amazing. You know, just being able to be in the space with people who share my identity has just been super awesome. Like you always know that there are Black ace people out there, but it's like, yeah, but where are they? You know, where's the room? You know, not to be like a Hamilton weirdo on Maine,
Yeah,
but like I want to be in
I
the
was-
room where it happens.
Room
Where
where
is
it
it?
happens. Room where.
That's my sibling's fault. Okay, I'm not usually into musicals because he was like, "Hey, listen to this," and then there was no escape. Next thing I knew,
Hamilton's
I'm just in my
amazing.
office
Yes.
dancing along. But
Mhm.
yeah, making these spaces, and I'd say probably, you know, the only other thing is if you see, you know, especially with social media and the way that it is, if you see people being, you know, shitty to someone who's asexual, you know, say something. You know, because like more often than not, especially being Black, like, you know, you could just be like, hey, it's a nice day out. And then someone will be like, oh, so you want puppies to die forever? And it's like, that's not what I said at all.
I'm threatened by you.
Yes. And then 10 more people come in and they're like, they said that they wanted that dog to die. And it's like, what are you talking about? Okay, can anyone like help so I don't have to do this? And then it's like weird crickets. Or that one devoted friend who's like, no, I got time today. But it's like, you can't always be that one friend. Come help us, please. So I think that's probably a good thing for, you know, just to sort of support the community, but definitely more spaces like this, more conventions like this, especially online. This panini is wild. I'm in Florida, it's even wilder. Just wilding out down here.
Mhm.
But where you can find me, you can find me on Twitter as @Kobanyakana. You can find me on Tumblr as Kobanya. You can find me on Pillow Fort as Kobanya. Yes, I'm on Pillow Fort. Um, I am on Instagram, but I only use it to enter giveaways, so I do not recommend following me there. If you find it, have fun. You'll only see me trying to win free perfumes and lotions. Uh, I love free things. Gosh, and I have a website, towerofbasil.wordpress.com. When I eventually stop being cheap, I'll buy that properly so it doesn't have the WordPress at the end. But um otherwise I don't really have anything, you know, ace related to plug. I'm crowdfunding for a game, but I don't want to take up time with that unless that's cool.
I believe judges, it's cool.
Okay, because I'm like, this has nothing to do with this, but I am I'm currently crowdfunding for my horror game Pelagos, and because I'm an ancient Greek nerd, that means sea stories loosely. There's a whole thing where, but I talked about that on a different show. So, but yes, it is crowdfunding, and it is over 50%, because it's late, 50%, and hopefully it'll get fully funded so I can write the full version. And my lights are flickering again. All right, so we're just gonna, that's the universe saying, "Hey, shut up and go to bed." So
you have an Oscars wrap up personal, like in your house.
Not the
it's some,
music.
it's some guy flickering the lights. Go, hey man, hey, come on,
Your
shut up.
sibling is like, come on.
Wrap it up. Hey, come on, time. You're running out of time. Just tapping the watch. But yeah, that's basically where you can find me and what I'm currently doing. So happy to have been here. So happy to have met all y'all.
Oh yeah.
Definitely would love to do more of this in the future. So yeah, and also obligatory.
Oh, you cut out right when you said that. What was that? One more time?
Oh God, just me howling about the fluids. Dear God, the fluids.
I assumed so, and I was like, nope. I have to. We have to bring it back.
Put it on a
amazing.
shirt.
Exactly. Coming soon. Fair.
that's me. I don't know if I have much to add to the answer because I definitely echo what all of my fellow panelists have said. I think I will also just kind of reiterate to, I think making space for us also includes allowing us to feel safe at the table and to explore things in a safe environment. To what Jazz said, like not everybody wants flirting and romance, and there needs to be space made for that in understanding of like, ensuring that everyone's needs are met at the table. And I think that's the best way to support us outside of allowing us space to talk about these things. Having this convention, which Robo, thank you so much. This was an amazing idea and I really appreciate you putting it together. But yeah, like giving us the space to have conversation with other asexuals and giving us an opportunity to meet each other, because it is something like, walking around like, where are they at though? Like, when I walk into a room, when I walk into like a function, the first thing I'm looking for is another Black person just in case. So like I would love to have that in terms of like, my sexual orientation as well. And then as for where you can find me, because again, I don't everybody already said it perfectly. I do not need to, keep repeating. Where you can find me, you can follow me on socials at Fairbear. Saturdays 3 p.m. Eastern, you can find me over on D&D Jordan Lee's channel for Ampistrano, a homebrew D&D 5e campaign. Every other Tuesday, you could find me over on Waffles Maple Syrup, 8:15 p.m. Eastern for Reflections, a Delta Green campaign. Starting next month, you'll be able to hear me on Taking Initiative Season 3, Sword and She, that's SIDHE, a Pathfinder 2e campaign. And then I have a lot of other things coming up. We're doing Games for Change over on Jordan's channel. Check that out. That'll be in the beginning of next month. Also, if you're interested in the Vampire the Masquerade anthology that I will be in, you could check out Thirst Trap Moth Twitter for a crowdfunder. Actually, I have a link. I
Link
forgot
it,
I
baby.
copied it. We are crowdfunding for an anthology. It's going to be an amazing experience. Vampires,
Villains,
yes.
yeah.
Villains, yes.
Villains.
It's called Villains. We
Hell
are
yeah.
all baddies, but I don't know. It's just the world that Wes has built is so interesting, and I'm definitely looking forward to playing that. And they have put together an amazing cast. So definitely check it out, and definitely if you have spare coin, maybe consider donating to the crowdfunding. I think that's all I have. Again, if I forgot something, so sorry. But you can just follow my Twitter, and that's where you'll know what I'm doing and when I'm doing it.
Fantastic. Jazz?
Really quickly, I forgot to plug two things that are quite important because they're coming up.
Go for it.
Tomorrow, I will be on Zeal Zaddy's channel doing story talk, where we talk. I think
Ooh.
tomorrow's theme is about building characters for long-term campaigns. I'm a very character-driven author, so I'm very excited to talk about how I create characters and watch them grow. So if you wanted to see that, I think that is at it's quite late. I want to say 8 o'clock. Eastern time. I want to say I will put that up on my my Twitter though. And the other thing is that I was blessed enough to be on Dragon Talk, D&D's official D&D's official podcast. Where I also talked about asexuality and asexuality in the TTRPG space, among other things. That will be out next Wednesday on Spotify and anywhere else you have.
You and the April Ray gun. Yay!
I know.
What a
back
combo!
to back, dude. I was like, oh, we
dude.
winning. Oh, we are winning today.
We out here, baby.
I'm
We
honestly
win.
over here like, dang, people went on Dragon Talk and talked about important stuff, and I just talked about horror movies for like 45 minutes when I was on it.
That's okay.
I need
That's
you to
valid.
understand that I blacked out the entire interview. I don't remember
same.
what I said.
Thanks.
I just know that it had to do with asexuality and other stuff.
Truly same. And like, I think I even said this. I was like, I don't even know why I'm here.
I did say that. I did say it. I said, how did you find me? And they were like, oh,
Yeah.
honey. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, I don't even know why I'm here because I'm literally a no one. But okay, if you want to waste your
Yes.
time, that's fine. I like to waste
It's
my
not
own
a
time too.
waste. It's not a waste.
You are
I
someone,
know,
damn it.
I know.
Yes.
This
The
is
brain
last
gremlins
year.
out
We're
here.
talking about you.
If you were particularly interested in the words that I say, you can find me there, and also on Zill's Eddie's channel on Tuesdays for D&D and Queen's Court games coming up, a couple of different things, and of course the Other Sider Studios with Sade/Ambrose. Thank you for that.
That was amazing.
Everybody in the Zoom chat laughed at me because I did remember one thing.
Yep.
I don't know how I forgot this. It's wild. I've been a guest on Forge Academy for like the past month. I don't ask. I don't know. Everything is void in my head. But yeah, if you want to, if you like the sound of my voice, debatable. If
great.
you like the sound of my voice,
Yes.
you should absolutely check out Forge Academy. You should just check it out in general because that crew is great. But I have been on like I think the past 3 or 4 episodes so far, and I have a couple more episodes left to record with them. And it's been a very interesting arc. We are trying to resurrect a fallen PC. So it's been very interesting. So yeah, check it out. I think an episode dropped yesterday. I'm actually I was reminded because I was like thinking about tomorrow. I'm like, oh, I'm recording with them tomorrow. Oh, I should plug this.
And you did. You did it.
It's the undiagnosed ADHD for me, y'all. Anyway, check out Forge Academy.
Well said.
That's it. That's all I got.
All gravy. No, it's all good. And as far as me, we kind of touched on it a little bit, but something that happened at because we did a asexuality panel at PAX U just I guess now almost 2 months ago, and someone asked a question about like around age representation, and I remember it like in like who's ace out here in the media, and we were all just like, I don't know. Do we have any? And I remember I left panels like 2 hours like earlier, and I was like, why didn't we say us? So the answer is us. So support us, damn it, and support our awesomeness because we're a bunch of badasses doing really cool things, super creative minds out here, and not just us. We are out here, loud, proud, Black AF, and as Raven mentioned earlier, we're not going anywhere. So as far as where you can find me, you can find me on Twitter, Duval King Jacob, and on Instagram where you can see pictures of Cooper who was barking earlier. I can't apologize for him because he doesn't deserve it. I love him though; he's the best. I love him so much. I'll give him a hug for you. And I'm also a co-founder of the Amphitheater, which is my Twitch channel where we play Ttrpgs and video games with Empathy University at the forefront. You can actually, since today's Saturday, tomorrow, episode 48 of Duval and Dragons, my Chrono Trigger 5e D&D campaign over on twitch.tv/SoManyGames. Really, really, really amazing game over there. You should definitely come check that out tomorrow, evening, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Then Tuesday over on the Amphitheater, Tadori Fields of Wonder, 8 p.m. Eastern time. And then Wednesday over on That's How We Roll _ over there. That's the URL for Twitch. And the finale of our 6th shot of Fantastic Kings and Where to Find Them. Going to be climactic, big boss battle. Going to be a really good time, 9 p.m. Eastern time over there. And then Bi-Weekly Thursday, this Thursday is, I believe, Outcast and Outclass. Is that right? Yep. And which should be super, super fun. That's our Pathfinder 2e Treasure of the Thousands campaign there. And then the following week is back on the Amphitheater for Arcade University. Episode 4 over there are awesome because I'm in school on Thursdays, both days, just Pathfinder 1 and D&D 5e on the other. And then on the opposite Sunday, back over on Somatic Games for Dragonlance, Dragons of Rebirth. So yeah, I'm not busy or doing anything.
You're doing a lot.
Anything.
You're doing a
not
lot,
at
fam.
all. What are you talking about? Anyway, lastly, before we get out of here, of course, this is just the second day of AceCon. We have more AceCon to do. So tomorrow, so you think you might be asexual as a panel happening tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. So come back and check that out. We have more to talk about. And then we're going to be heading over, speaking of Black awesomeness, we're going to be rating Cypher of Tyr, who's playing Baldur's Gate 3. So be kind or she'll ban you. So be good. And lastly, and not leastly, stay black. Have a good night.